Redditors who had a near-death experience. What was it like? Story 1. When I was 5, my family went to New York and, as we all know, no trip to New York would be complete without going on one of the top floors of a skyscraper to look over the city. And well, when my mom and dad were distracted talking to each other, my curious little self wanted to see if I could fit between the panels used as railing. Even though it was November, I went as far as to take my jacket off to really see if I could fit. 5-year-old me not realizing there was anything dangerous about what I was doing. I don't remember it all, but my dad said he went to get me to go back inside. Saw my left leg, arm, and a little bit of torso through those panels, and quickly yanked me back inside. He says every now and then he'll have a nightmare that I fell through and wake up in a sweat. Story 2. Helpless. I was on the beach and went swimming at 14. Now I was used to swimming these heavy big waves. In Europe they have red, yellow and green flags. That day, like most, it was on yellow, and the waves were a bit choppy, but we'd just run in and dive below the curl of the wave. My grandparents let me go swimming alone, but said to stay near the lifeguards. While there they changed the flag to red, and about 12 to 15 people are trying to make it out, while the waves are just sucking us deeper in. I started to lose breath because I attempted to get out like 10 times by that point. Finally caught a wave and made it out, only to have the second wave behind me just smash right down on me when I was getting back up. It dragged me back in. Finally, on my last attempt, I made it out and got up as fast as I could, sprinted up the sandy hill and made it out. I'm super careful going into the ocean to swim now. Story 3. Years ago, I was helping a friend renovate his basement. There was around 10 sheets of drywall leaning on a spot on that wall I needed, so the two of us just had to move it over like 4 inches, so we would lean it off the wall then budge it over. I was right in the middle of the stack, so for the last push, we pulled them back a little too far, so it was leaning towards me. Once we realized, we both started pushing like crazy to get it back to the wall, but it was way too heavy. It only took a second or two before it was tipping over on me, and when I was falling I was thinking no. This isn't how I die, as approximately 1,000 pounds was tipping over on me, and there was nothing I can do about it other than watch it kill me. But there was a fucking children's bookcase lying on the floor next to me. The drywall caught the side of the case. I landed on my back and my right foot was still planted, so my knee was sticking straight up. The drywall caught the side of the bookcase, created a new 40-degree taper, but stopped it less than an inch from hitting my knee. I somehow landed in that incredibly small window where I'd be completely unscathed. I just remember thinking, this is how I cheated death. With a fucking children's bookcase. Story 4. Not mine but my grandmother's. She was a difficult person and very mean, humorless and vindictive. Caused a ton of problems in our family. So she's 93 and breaks a hip. Has a near-death experience during the procedure. She later described it as being surrounded by beings who told her everything she had ever done wrong. She was highly religious, but never mentioned the experience as at all relating to her religion. There was light, and these beings surrounded her and helped her make sense of her life. She had mental health issue, and we suspected was abused as a child. Anyway, we came in to see her after it, and the first thing she did was look straight at my mom, her favorite target of abuse, and apologize for an hour and a half. She owned everything she ever did. This woman had never apologized before in her life. For the last year of her life, she was utterly different, kind, funny, self-effacing and sweet. It was like getting a whole new grandmother. She was perfectly cognizant, logical and aware too. Damnedest thing I ever saw. Story 5. Not my story but my grandfather's. He got a severe flu in the 50s or 60s. Apparently had to go to the hospital and flatlined while he was staying in a room. Said he could remember suddenly being in the corner of the room, watching himself and people coming into the room to work on him to try to save him. A large light opened up in the opposing corner of the room, and he said he could feel it beckoning to him and pulling him toward it. He said he told the light, "I can't go now, I have a family I have to take care of." Said the light then closed up and they resuscitated him. Story 6. Was at a gun range and a guy with an AK-47 accidentally shot me point blank in the groin. I was talking to a random guy about AKs and he told me he had one with a bad trigger. I work on guns and trigger work is easy to do, so we go over where he has 2 AK-47s in a hard rifle case, no mags in them, and we are just talking, so he reaches down to what I thought to grab the handle, and he pulls the trigger with his thumb. Heard a dull thud, and it felt like someone kicked me in the right leg. The bullet ricocheted off the front of my pelvis and took out my femoral artery and nerve bundle. In my right leg, doctor said I had a softball-size hole in my leg. Knowing you only have about 20 minutes of life left will make you fight as hard as you can to stay awake, and I stayed awake until the drive in the trauma center put an oxygen mask on me. The doctors told my parents I had a 7% chance of living. I woke up 2 days later after about 14 hours of surgery. 5 years later, foot still doesn't work great, lots of nerve pain and the pile of metal in my leg, but I'm still here. Story 7. All I remember is feeling very calm and comfortable, like someone was basically slowly turning my consciousness down with a dial. The room around me started to melt and swirl like fractal patterns, and that was it. Next thing I know, I'm being asked if I knew where I was, if I knew what day it was, if I could name the president. About 4 days passed that I have no memory of there in the middle. Wouldn't have been a bad way to go, honestly. Only really noticed I was dying until I wasn't anymore. It should be noted that I kind of long for death, but won't kill myself because of loved ones. I imagine if I weren't the way I am, I probably would not have had such a good time. Story 8. In 2009, I suffered an acute buildup of fluid in my lungs following a bout of double pneumonia, resulting in intubation and a 4-week coma. Rather than almost being hit by a train in a split second, I was clinging onto a thread of life for several weeks. While I was under, I experienced all manner of weird shit. I was a Star Wars Rebel Alliance pilot, an ice baron. I laid burgers like chicken lay eggs. A trapdoor above my bed took me into the Rocky Mountains. A subway train crashed into the 4th floor ICU. The hospital priest was a voodoo doctor on the DJ decks at a rave, and so, all 100% real as day 2. Knee. The worst was spending one night believing I had to breathe strong and deep, so a baby a few beds over could breathe my air, but it didn't survive. Weeks later I found out there was no baby. So that's good. But the thing I remember most is waking up several times in a court, in a hospital room of courts, and being nursed by giant nurses. I think my medicated brain was open to the idea of reincarnation or something. Story 9. I was in the ocean riptide at night and couldn't get to shore. I swam till exhaustion and was farther out than when I started, and probably farther than I'd ever swam in my life. I got really calm and peaceful. My body knew it was done. It was nice actually. After the fear melted away, it felt like I could feel all the individual points on my body where the water was touching me. Rolled over on my back and waited. After waiting a while, I realized that I could gain some ground if I swam sideways. Yes, that's something I should have known. So did a few strokes and a few strokes. Then my body kicked back in and got to shore, and life really sucked for a few hours, puking salt water and coming out of shock. But I'm alive.